Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Frederic Pujol from IDATE. Thank you for this invitation to the FG Time conference. So I will present you today the overview of the latest 5G Observatory findings. So my company IDATE is currently providing the 5G Observatory for the European Commission. So I'm going to give you a little background on this. So the European Commission wanted to monitor the 5G deployments in Europe and follow the different goals of the 5G action plan. So the European Commission decided in 2018 to establish the 5G Observatory for EU 28 at the time. So what we did is to set up a website, the 5G Observatory website, which that you are seeing here, where we publish update on the commercial launches, on the 5G spectrum assignation in member states. We also publish quarterly reports. And so we just published quarterly report number 10 in early January this year. And in these reports, we report on the assignment of a spectrum, on the 5G commercial launches, on the strategy of member states, etc. So I will summarize today the content of the latest quarterly report. Starting with the what we call the scoreboards, now covering EU 27 plus the UK. So in this scoreboard, we cover the 5G trials in Europe, also the 5G enabled cities, the development of cross-border corridors, and spectrum assignment. I will cover this in more detail later on. And we also indicate which member states have published national 5G roadmaps in order to detail, for instance, the deadlines for the operators to deploy 5G and also their strategy for assigning 5G spectrum in the pioneer bands. So this scoreboard was published in December 2020. Probably the most important item here is the follow-up of spectrum assignment in the pioneer bands. So there are 3 pioneer bands for 5G in Europe: the 700 megahertz, the 3.6 gigahertz, and the 26 gigahertz band. So you can see that overall, only 35.7% of the spectrum in pioneer bands had been assigned at the end of 2020. So a few explanations on what is reported here. So you can see in black in this figure, a spectrum that has been assigned and was usable in 2020. In blue, it's spectrum assigned to the operators, but not yet available. So, for instance, this is the case in Italy for 700 megahertz spectrum that is still used by digital terrestrial television. So this spectrum will be available at the end of 2021. And in red, you can see spectrum that has not been assigned to operators. So here, in the 3.6 band, more than half of the spectrum has been assigned in EU 27 plus the UK. This band proves to be the most popular among operators for early 5G deployments because it provides a good mix between coverage and capacity. So if we now have a look at what is called the DESI score, so it's the Digital Economy and Society Index, so the score for spectrum assignment among EU 27 countries plus the UK, you can see that only a limited number of countries have assigned all the spectrum for the 3 pioneer bands. So this is Finland and Okay, Italy has also assigned a spectrum in the 3 bands, but you can see that some countries do still need to assign spectrum in the 3 pioneer bands. Let's have a look at what's happening outside Europe. So the most dynamic countries outside Europe are the US, China, South Korea, and Japan. In these countries, there is already 5G commercial services. The first countries were US and South Korea, and they launched 5G commercial services in April 2019. In the quarterly report, we also compare spectrum in low bands below 1 gigahertz, in mid bands below 6 gigahertz, and in millimeter wave bands. So it's interesting to see that well, there is a lot of millimeter wave spectrum identified in China and the US, more than in Europe. We can see here that Europe has already assigned spectrum in the 3 type of bands, whereas in some countries, spectrum has been identified but not yet assigned. For instance, in the low bands, you can see that in China and South Korea, spectrum has not been assigned yet to the operators. Let's have a look now at the 5G commercial launches in Europe. So 5G is live in 24 markets out of 28 countries. Most 5G networks currently use the 3.6 gigahertz band, but some operators, like in Germany or Belgium, are currently using 4G spectrum with the DSS, the Dynamic Spectrum Sharing functionality, in order to share the spectrum between 4G and 5G services. What we are seeing today worldwide in terms of scale of 5G deployments, well, we can see large-scale deployments in China and South Korea with more than 100,000 cell sites with 5G base stations. We see medium-scale deployments in the US, Japan, and Germany. Germany is clearly the most advanced country in Europe, with Deutsche Telekom having deployed more than 40,000 base stations, 5G base stations, at the end of 2020. In most EU member states, operators have deployed hundreds of 5G base stations, but 5G deployments will go quicker in 2021. On the 5G Observatory website, you can access a 5G trials database where there are functionalities which enable you to sort out using the date of announcement, the country, operators, manufacturers, frequency bands, and verticals. So you can get an extract, an Excel extract of the database with your item selection, and it's available live on the website. At the end of 2020, we had reported more than 245 trials in EU and in Russia, Norway, Turkey, Switzerland, and San Marino. There were close to 200 trials in EU member states plus the UK. So you can see here a map of Europe showing countries that have 5G trials. So the countries where there are most trials are Spain, Germany, Italy, France, and the UK as well. The 3.6 gigahertz band is still the most tested frequency band so far. You can see other bands being tested were millimeter wave bands with 26, 28, and 70 gigahertz bands, and also the 700 megahertz band for 5G trials. It's interesting to see which vertical were tested last year. So the media and entertainment was the most tested vertical, followed by transport, automotive, industry 4.0, e-health, and smart cities. And there was also some tests on virtual reality, public safety, energy, agriculture, and smart buildings. Smartphones were available starting in 2019 for 5G. And we now have a lot of phones available, but also CPEs for the provision of fixed wireless access services, and also routers, switches, hotspots, and even laptops and tablets available with 5G modem. So what we are seeing today is no real 5G killer application. When there is a new generation of mobile system, there is always a search for a killer application. But what we are seeing today is that operators are offering more higher speeds and more data on their data plans. We are also seeing 5G fixed wireless access, for instance, in the US and in Australia, and there is quite a lot of interest in Europe as well. But today, 5G is mainly offered for mobile services. We will see soon, today offerings are targeting consumers, so it's mainly B2C offerings, and with ultra high definition video. There will be soon augmented reality, virtual reality, and gaming and entertainment is very successful, for instance, in South Korea. Of course, the data rates offered by 5G services are very useful for remote education and also for virtual communications. We've seen that 5G services have been pushed by the COVID-19 pandemic. So for virtual office and so for remote working and also virtual education, and also for e-health services, which were deployed in China, for instance. So in conclusion, we can say that 5G deployments are underway in the European Union with 24 countries offering 5G commercial services at the end of 2020. Spectrum assignments have not reached the objective of the 5G action plan, with only 1/3 of spectrum assigned in the 3 pioneer bands. So of course it's a progress compared to June 2019, but still it's below expectations. So COVID-19 have had an impact and delayed auctions in some countries, but these auctions that were delayed are now completed or will be completed very soon. The COVID-19 also had an impact on 3GPP standardization, with the postponing of release 16 and 17. And some deployments or investments were delayed, but we can see now that operators are investing on 5G, and that adoption is coming, and with many devices and available. So there is no real limitation to 5G adoption in Europe. Thank you very much for your attention.
Welcome everyone, 13th Economical Forum time in Warsaw, and we are going to talk today about 5G in Poland and the world, state of implementation, prospect for development. Now, let me present my guest today, Martin Mellor, Country Manager, Ericsson Poland. Hi Martin, how are you?
Hi Eric, very good, thank you.
Thomas Riedel, Head of Europe Samsung Networks. Hi Thomas.
Hello. Hi.
Tonny Bao, CEO of Huawei Poland. Hi, Tonny. Nice to have you here.
Hi.
and Piotr Jaworski, CTO Orange Polska. Witaj, Piotr. Well, let's start it. I think it would be fair to say that before we just follow what Frederic just presented on state of 5G implementation, it would be probably good to spend a few minutes discussing about pandemic. Pandemic was definitely something horrible, but it also proved at the same time that the connectivity is a key element of our life. It's actually connectivity means continuity. Thanks to the connectivity, we could basically survive. We could keep the economy rolling. We could keep the education rolling. On the other side, pandemic also slowed down certain processes. Well, basically, we are a little bit in Europe falling behind the 5G action plan agreed upon by the countries in 2016. So if I may, as a kind of introduction, ask each of you just to elaborate on that actually influence of pandemic and the 5G, the positive and the negative, the kind of a balance of what happened over the last 12 months. May we start with you, Thomas?
Yes. Yeah, I fully agree. I think the pandemic proved that connectivity is ensuring that we continue life under challenging circumstances. I actually have some data from last year when the first lockdown was coming. We could see on a global basis increased traffic, especially in the education, in healthcare, and in home working use cases. So that shows how connectivity can help us to, let's say, continue our life in a kind of new normal. My son can go to school, for example, when there is an outbreak. I mean, he can still continue his education. As we all are here in a virtual room, I think that's a proof point that we can continue to exchange ideas, do business while being at home. And there are many other examples that probably my colleagues will address in entertainment. Maybe one example from Korea, which maybe bring a smile to you. But when Korea was in lockdown, then, for example, marriages were transmitted online to the guests via Zoom. So these are just examples that we can continue life, and connectivity is really critical.
Well, actually, this is quite, I would say, innovative approach. I'm just sorry, I wasn't thinking about that. But Martin, may you just elaborate a bit about that? What are your experiences?
Well, I think society's learned that networks are resilient, and we've seen some big transformative changes over the past year. When everybody started to work from home, we saw all the network traffic change from being business areas to residential areas, and the networks cope fine, and they've increased in traffic, of course. So we've learned that more than ever, networks are essential for people to stay connected, whether they're businesses, families, public health workers, and they have been extremely resilient. And I'm really proud, as I'm sure we all are, as representatives of this industry, to help society in these difficult times. It does show that networks are national critical infrastructure. You couldn't have imagined what life would have been like 20 years ago without the upload speeds that we have today. I think the networks have helped to connect people, they help reduce social isolation. Education's been mentioned. I think people have kept themselves busy with content streaming, with gaming. All of these have helped society get us through these times. And in business, the pandemic has really accelerated digitalization, and supply chains being one example which have benefited from these networks.
Yeah, I think that's very, very good comments. It is visible that a lot of businesses survive just because they were relatively well prepared to what happened. Well, I think following what you said, let's imagine what would happen if that pandemic would be started 20 years ago. It would be actually horrible. Tonny, could you please also just add something on that?
Yeah, I would like to mention about the, let's say, technology supporting the healthcare during the pandemic. For example, I remember beginning of last year when this pandemic happened, and it's really, I think, horrible. And in China, a lot of hospitals has been built for this special purpose. But as you understand, technology need to support. So 5G and together with the fixed network actually in very, I have to say, very urgent and very fast deployment to connect the hospitals in order for the doctors to have the capability, even for the remote, diagnose remote surgery. Yeah? So this is the first thing, I think. Secondly, also I noticed after the first wave of the pandemic, a lot of countries has been developed a lot of apps in order to tracing let's say the during the quarantine period, and also tracing the affected people. This I think gives a lot of capability for logistic, but also for the passengers. I think particularly in China, because I just went back from China last month. I think it's pretty well organized. Yeah, you can easily find out the whole let's say record. In this case, that the healthy system can easily to monitoring and support the effective case. Yeah? Another thing also, I support the point that I think technology, I mean particular 5G and of course also fixed 5G, play a very important role during this pandemic. I think even more important than we thought. For example, as you understand, we just had our Chinese Spring Festival. And this year, because of pandemic, so a lot of shows actually cannot be performed as before. So this time, a lot of shows actually has been performed remotely, but in reality, even for broadcasting, you cannot identify it remotely. It's like on site. So this also gives a lot of imagination and capabilities for not just entertainment, but I think for the whole society. I think this is a value we think the pandemic, I mean technology support the pandemic for the society, for the entertainment and for healthcare. And of course, many others, as you mentioned, like industries, like from the office, from the working. I think this is people more and more, I think, understand technology actually, it's helping. It's more helping. Yeah, that's my. Well,
I think that's a fundamental words. Piotr, what about your impression? I think, you know, do you see that educational process over this 12-month progress? And because I remember, we all remember, because this is not the first time we're discussing during the Economical Forum a time on 5G, and we always had to prove why we need it, why it is so important. Do you see how this 12 months changed that perception, or you don't see it that way? What is your opinion about that?
First of all, I would like to focus a little bit on the pandemic and the lockdown that was introduced in the spring last year. And this was a test for our network, for Orange network. And speaking openly, we passed that exam with a very good result, because looking at the results, a 50% increase in the data traffic, 210 million connection on the 16th of March last year, and we handled all those, let's say, connections. It seems, and also the video, I mean, the data traffic concerned with the CDNs and so on, it proved that the network and the structure and of the network is very important for securing the services and the resilience of the network. Moreover, as you know, probably the emerging services, all of them, they are in our network, Orange network. So all interconnection traffic was directed to our network. So it also proved that the interconnect points, they were very important at that stage. If we are talking about the 5G, and I would like to say that first of all, a lot of traffic was moved to the mobile network. And it is obvious that majority of operators, they suffer from the congestion in this network. And 5G, first of all, at least at the first stage, brings additional capacity. 80 megahertz, it's a significant amount of the spectrum supporting, let's say, the traffic, supporting the download speed, and moreover, supporting the upload speed, what is crucial for the video conferencing. And it proved that in many, many cases, fixed network and fiber network is I can say, the best solution to secure all those needs. So 5G is more than welcome if you are talking about the securing the capacity, first of all, because if you are talking about 5G, we should, let's say, consider two stages. Non-standalone with one only from this famous triangle benefit. It's huge and quite significant download speed. And then we have those second and the third, IoTs and the low latency. And without SA solution, it's not the case. And SA, it's not now, it's within 2-3 years. So from that perspective, now, if you ask me about the 5G, I see this as a, first of all, additional capacity that is crucial and needed to secure the services in the time of the lockdown.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think that that was a big lesson for all of us. I think that that also we as a user may actually reflect on it. It's important that we reflect on it because that shows why these discussions are so important, because we're talking about, as I think Thomas said, critical infrastructure here. Absolutely critical. Now let's go back to what Frederic was referring to, the last 5G Observer report. I will just remind you a few data from that, which basically a little bit surprised me, at least to some extent. At the end of 2020, 5G commercial services were available in 23 EU countries. Well, that doesn't sound bad. But based on the latest report of Analysis Mason, only 24% Europeans have an access to 5G when comparing to 75% in US, and like in Korea, that would be 93%. That is based on Analysis Mason report, somehow connected with the investment. In Europe, per capita, we invest something like 94 euro per capita. In US, it is 150, when in Japan, it's 230. So huge differences here. What else? Spectrum distribution. Well, actually, as I said, 5G action plan in 2016, that was when Commission established this plan. We're a little bit behind that plan right now. The only 3 countries distributed all 3 pioneer bands. When there are some countries, and including Poland, the process didn't start it yet. So let's talk about that. What needs to be done for Europe to get back on track and to speed up the process. To go back to the 5G action plan. What are, in your opinion, the most critical factor, or based on the lesson learned from various geographies you are present at, what are the critical factor? Is it the frequency distribution? Is it an investment? Are there regulatory changes? What are the barriers you would just indicate as the most common? I'm not referring necessarily to Poland. I'm rather thinking about the process as such. So if you just could share with us your opinion and share this best practices, I would very much appreciate it. Maybe we may start with Martin this time. Martin?
Sure. I think we all understand 5G is aimed more so at businesses as well as consumers. And with 5G providing these enterprise applications, the nations who are first movers will have an advantage. And we've seen the results of the pandemic, as we've just said. It increases the digitalization. And 5G will enable this industrial digitalization. And that's why governments should make 5G central to their program for economic recovery after the pandemic. So there's a big cost in terms of waiting for 5G. And 5G is poised to become the main choice for access technology, enabling industries to become digitalized in the same way that 4G did for consumers. So countries that lead in the digital world will have clear commercial advantages, and those that fail to do so will have the inevitably lose competitiveness. But what's needed? I mean, we know that spectrum must be made available. You said there only 3 European countries have made all the 3 pioneer bands available. Many countries still have not made 1 pioneer band available. So spectrum is essential. Permitting needs to be made easier. And I must congratulate Poland on making the EMF limits harmonized with other parts of Europe. But if spectrum is made available, then I think Poland has a lot of innovation, a lot of R&D and production in 5G, and it can quickly catch up. But initially that spectrum needs to be there, and I encourage all governments to put 5G at the heart of their recovery plan from this pandemic.
Thank you very much, Martin. Thomas?
Yeah, I agree with Martin. I mean, everything, and with yourself, Eric, it always starts with the spectrum. Without spectrum, you cannot build a network. Then you need sites, you need transmission. In the end of the day, you also need a business case. And you referred to the comparison to US and Korea. These are, of course, completely different markets in Europe. So I think what needs to be, let's say, acknowledged is Europe is different, because also the end consumer has, let's say, is paying less of a price for their service. But for the operators, it means less room to invest. And that's kind of the issue. So due to the pandemic, in many countries in Europe, spectrum auctions have been delayed. The regulations are not certain. And this is on top of the, let's say, slimmer margins. This is quite a challenging mix, because it means there's not enough capital available to invest. And the uncertainty means is also, let's say, poison for investments. But on the other hand, I agree with Martin, if you can find a way, and there probably governments can help a lot, to jumpstart this investment, there's a lot of opportunity. In Korea, for example, who are building out 5G the fastest in the world, within, let's say, 18 months, they build like 90–70% population coverage. The traffic is surging, 26 gigabytes per month per subscriber, and there's an endless list of services already available. So once there's a network, the services are coming, and the opportunities for operators, but for the general industry, are automatically following. So this is kind of where we are in Europe, and I think it needs a common effort to turn this around so we don't fall behind.
Yeah, I think you pointed on a very, very important element. I forgot to say, ARPU in Europe, the average is €15 when comparing with US 36.9. So almost twice bigger than in Europe. Okay, Tonny, could you please share with us your point of view?
Okay, some points Martin and Thomas already mentioned. I think, first of all, definitely spectrum is the key, very essential facts for 5G rollout, for any kind of technology rollout, right? Second, I think uncertainty is really killing the process. Actually, 5G auction supposed to be allocated or finished even last summer. Everybody, we know what's happened in last spring, and we think that legislation should support the industry. Not creating kind of the barrier for the industry. I think all in the past 1.5 years, 2 years, almost 2 years, in Polish telecom market. It's really, this has been raised again and again about the voice from the market. I think this is very essential for our industry, to make it clear, to be supportive. Another thing I think I also want to point out, it's very important, is about the free competition. Because you just mentioned about the cost, up in Europe and up in China, up in US, up in Korea, it's different. But the one thing I think I would point out, maybe Piotr remember, in 2019, beginning of 2019, when we presented the 5G smartphones, the cost at that time is about $500. But with competition you see today, the smartphones for 5G smartphones, the price below 150 is much available. So this competition actually can give a lot of benefit for the industry from the ecosystem perspective, from the infrastructure to the device, and of course to the content and to the ecosystem. And another thing I think also is very important is innovation environment, because if we are just talking about capacity needs for 5G, I think this will not create too much value for our industry, for telecom. Yeah, we have fiber, we have many other technologies still can. But I think the most sexy part, or the most important part for 5G is, as Piotr just mentioned, standard unknown, which is we're addressing to the vertical. But if you are talking about addressing to the vertical, this really needed to be open and to have this innovative environment. Because just the telecom ourselves, I mean vendors or telecom operators, I think it's not enough. We need to involve a lot of vertical industry. For example, in China today, it's already more than 1 million C-band base station has been deployed. And then we see a lot of cases in entertainment, in mining, in port, transportation, healthcare. A lot of industries a lot of money, fund, has been introduced into this industry. In this case, this will booming. And then telecom or 5G will become the fundamental platform to booming the economy. Otherwise, I think just the pure telecom operator and the vendors, this will not fly. So that's something that we always advocate, that free competition and be more innovative, to be more open. Because this industry, if we really want to be supporting as a fundamental platform, supporting the economy recovery or economy development, open and innovative, make it a free competition. This will be the key. That's my point. Thanks.
Thank you, Tonny. I think it's very important, because I think it's also fair to say that this is a huge difference between 4G and 5G. 5G is actually involving a lot of different players that might be a part of the game. So the private networks, which we may observe right now, prove that this technology is full of innovative possibilities, and we will talk about it later. Let's go to Piotr. Piotr, you are operating in one of the few countries that didn't start distribution of a frequency in any of these free pioneer bands. We know what happened last year. We could read the statement of the president of electronic office like a couple of days ago. He put on the web page explanation. So most likely we may expect this tender like a second quarter or the earliest. Yes, we expected it first quarter. Now it's second quarter. But actually, when I read what he said, I'm not quite sure if that second quarter is really doable, because what Mr. Oko said is exactly, yes, we have to postpone it. Yes, we have to think it over. We have to find out what is the best for us, as a user, for our country. We have to align it with the regulatory changes, because for the people that are not fully aware, we have two big legislation processes. One is related to the cybersecurity law and the so-called, and the second to the new electronic code. And as I read it, is that the electronic office would like to have everything cleared first, and only then decide how this auction should be performed, which sounds to me like a couple of months, but I will leave it to you to comment on.
Okay, so it's a very bad message if it is true, because in fact, without frequencies, we are not able to introduce 5G in Poland. Of course, I mean, I'm still referring to the 5G supporting the reason for which we are talking about the 5G. Because in fact, 4G, it provides us with the internet of people, for the people. 5G, it is an internet of things. So this is the big difference. And the stage that we are now, it's the rather stage about that we are comparing this download speed, and we are talking about the increasing the speed of the internet. We are not talking about the remaining part, I mean this low latency, and also about this IoTs, millions of IoTs to be served with the 5G infrastructure. And this is the potential, and all those benefits that were mentioned many times during these speeches, they are coming because of those two things. I mean, this IoTs plus this low latency, giving the possibility of, let's say, steering the machines and so on and so on. In Poland, situation is so complicated that, first of all, we have now this C-band, which is crucial because this gives a coverage and also the capacity for the 70% of the population in Poland. I'm talking about the big cities. I'm talking about the roads, main roads, but also the situation with the 700 is even more complicated.
Yeah.
At this stage, because of the lack of the cross-border regulations, 2/3 of the Polish, let's say, territory is excluded from the 700 megahertz coverage. So it means that if we have 5G on C-band, we can't deliver the same service, we can't provide the same service for all over the Poland to the customers. The only part of the Poland that we can provide the services is the west part, close to the German border. Because after, let's say, this reshuffling with the TV services for the TV bands, then we can offer this, let's say, frequencies to the 5G services. And this is the main problem that we face, that without frequencies, without spectrum, we can't talk about the 5G in Poland. Also, there is a barrier because, as I said, the low RPU, it means that in case of the customers, the only benefit they can get, it's this download speed at this stage. While still, without the spectrum, we can't secure the capacity. And this is the main reason for which delaying the process by a couple of months puts us in a very difficult position, very difficult position. 26 giga, this is the frequency that potentially can be used for, let's say, some virtual reality topics and so on, could be used for the fixed wireless access as a last mile solution. But in fact, at this stage, it's, this is not the stage that we are thinking about. I mean, talking about the operators Orange in Poland. We are waiting for the C-band, because without C-band, we can't launch 5G services in Poland, giving the customers real, let's say, feeling of having 5G. And this is the situation.
Yeah, well, I need to say that I fully agree, but I believe that President Oko letter is also clear on one point. He very much understands how important this auction is. It's clear. I mean, if you read it, it's clear. It's just we are trying to fix many things at the one time, which is going to be very, very difficult. I believe these processes are not easy. So let's keep our finger crossed that it will happen soon. And I will follow Martin's optimism. Martin is a couple of years already in Poland and speaks Polish better and better. And I think I would really believe that what he said is right. Then when we have this frequency, we will speed it up and we will stay competitive with connectivity as well. Now, so let's talk about that, the positive side of 5G. I mean, we were talking about why these processes are a little bit delayed in a few countries, including Poland, what have to be done. But when I was preparing to this meeting to talk to you guys, I went through also your web pages, and I was surprised seeing so many real use cases, so many things which weren't possible a year ago, 2 years ago. And we're not talking about kind of a better user experience. We're talking about completely new user experience. Let me go through a few of them, like real-time care, when ambulance is a life connected with the expert, which saving people's life, for example, like real-time machine sensors in a manufacturing process. We already have cases, measured cases, how this improved the effectiveness of the manufacturing process. Smart cities, it's an old story probably, but what I really find quite amusing, and I was talking about that with Thomas, that is close to Munich, and we were talking about Bayern Munich. Each Bundesliga game is observed by, on average, 43,000 people. That's, in Poland, it's amazing. It's probably all the game during one day is participating so many spectators. Of course, if there's no pandemic. And all these guys want to use their mobiles, which normally isn't possible. 5G is changing that picture. It's changing the way how we will provide the transmission. So you can forget about this broadband tracks, because this new technology will connect you immediately to the engineer hub, and so on, so on, so on, so on. Could we talk about that a little bit? Because this is not a future like project. This is something which have been done, which is proved, which is working, and which shows that we are at the beginning of innovative path engined by this new technology. Could you please elaborate on some real use cases you would like to share with us? Tonny, could we start with you?
Okay. Actually, I just mentioned a few cases. It's happening right now. I think if my numbers are correct, as I just mentioned, for example, in China today, it's already more than 1 million C-band base station has been deployed. And I remember when I landed in Shenzhen Airport, my download speed reached about 450. It's really amazing. And during this year, I see a lot of really cases happening. For example, as I just mentioned, for this performance, which is the biggest performance annually in China, which has a lot of 5G technology has been introduced. Yeah, and of course, not mentioning about in last year during the pandemic, really this remote surgery and this kind of activities has happened. And also more and more use case like in mining. Yeah, I think mining is also an industry which requires, it's very old technology in the past, but now 5G actually is helping a lot in terms of security, in terms of efficiency. Mining, port, transportation, and logistics happening. And one more thing also I would like to point out that now it's still in the early phase, as Piotr mentioned. 5G now is still in the early phase. Even in China, in Korea, I think still majority of them are business case entertainment or human related. Regarding machine, regarding vertical industry, still in early phase. However, I see more and more, really more and more, a lot of funds, a lot of innovative companies, startup companies, especially together with AI technology, and into this domain. So 5G plus AI, I think this will really change the situation. So I think this is early phase. Of course, there are some countries in the world like Korea, in China, maybe America as well, they're leading. And in Europe, I think Nordic countries like Finland, Sweden, Norway, and Germany also are leading. So let's take this opportunity. I mean, we can benefit from those first pioneers. I think there were already a lot of cases happening. And let's keep open and keep this business environment, keep innovative. I think we can benefit, I mean, as Poland, we can benefit from those technology, 5G plus AI. I think this is the key. Thanks.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. You mentioned mining. I've seen a lot of very interesting solutions related to mining. So it's kind of an old industry which is accessing this new technology that gives them completely new possibility, not being able to use them these possibilities before. Thomas, could you just share with us your experience from that perspective?
Yeah, in 5G use cases, as we just discussed the last 20 minutes, there is an endless list of use cases. What I would like to highlight are, and that's also my opinion, we can start from simple things. If we introduce 5G, what we did, for example, in the US, we were the first to launch fixed wireless access in the US. It's just it's a simple business case. Instead of digging a fiber to the home, you bridge the last mile with a 1 gigabit link on 5G, and all of a sudden at home you have all the possibilities. So, and then you can extend to other use cases. What happened? So in the US, we were initially focusing on fixed wireless access as a first use case. In Korea, which was, let's say, one of the first launches in mobile, it was more like Tonny just alluded, it was more use cases around AR and VR. For example, we showed some examples at the Winter Olympics in 2019, which is, let's say, a different way of looking at sports events. I mean, you mentioned the Munich Stadium. It's kind of these kind of use cases. You could call it entertainment or broadening the experience of events, such as sports events. One thing we also showcased in Europe, in Romania, 2 years ago, was also an event, but a music event, a music festival in Romania. And you could be together with Robbie Williams on stage via VR, how do you call a VR headset? Yeah, these are just some examples. Of course, in the end of the day, someone needs to make business with this. So I think the business models are still to be found out in the business cases, but in terms of possibilities and use cases, I think it's quite endless.
Yeah, I think you're right, but I remember our discussion 3 years ago, and everyone was saying, well, yeah, but you know, what would be the business model? Who is going to pay for it? I believe that this example shows that yes, we may expect a lot of new innovative companies building on 5G capabilities. Martin, could you please add something from your experience?
Yes, sure. I mean, great examples from Tonny and Thomas there, and I think that's just an example that 5G is the world's largest open innovation platform. And we've only just scratched the surface in terms of the applications we're all going to see in the future. By the end of 2020, I think there was something like 220 million 5G subscribers. There's going to be 3.5 billion, according to the Ericsson Mobility Report, 2025. It's going to make 5G the fastest growing technology platform we've ever seen on this planet. And consumers will benefit from AR, VR, examples already mentioned, be it gaming, retail and sports, but industries will benefit as well, as we've described, with all sectors benefiting. And we did a very nice report with Analyst Mason on how Europe will benefit from 5G, especially industrial sectors. And it showed that there would be 210 billion euro GDP growth over the next 15 years directly from 5G. And Poland would get 15 billion euros of that. And the sectors which were bringing in the most returns and the biggest benefits for operators, companies and industries, it was smart production clusters and smart agriculture. And smart production was something like 7 billion euros alone for the GDP. So these are areas that Poland can benefit significantly from. And smart factories we see already. We're doing smart factories with Mercedes, with Audi. Ericsson's own factories are converted to smart factories in Tallinn and in the USA. Other good examples I see are autonomous vehicles. I had the pleasure to have a go in one of these in Stockholm when we could travel some time ago. But we're also doing things for medical, like drones. And I think rapidly getting blood and urgent parts for hospitals using drones is a great example of how 5G can really help society. I love the ideas about the music. We've seen that as well. I think it's great to get people connected. I think in the future we'll be having hologram meetings. I think there's endless opportunities, and it's a really exciting future for the 5G applications we're going to see.
Thank you, Martin. Piotr, we've heard our colleagues that representing the producers, manufacturers, vendors of the technology. Now you are representing operator, and clearly we know that you cannot benefit from all this capabilities right now without frequency. But how you see that? How this new potential products, services may influence a telecoms business in the future?
I think that telecom business is the basis for all the introduction of all those products and the services. My colleagues mentioned all the many areas in which use cases they are available now. I would add slicing, because with the slicing we can offer kind of a private network with a dedicated SLA, with the security and all this stuff that is dedicated to a particular customer, and this is benefit for sure that it will go to the business, to the industry. If I talk about the industry, because I would like to repeat once again, in my opinion, the real benefits from 5G will come with the low latency and with the IoT solutions. And this is the, let's say, the main driver for the development of, let's say, business and all this stuff. And from that perspective, when we have those IoTs, we can imagine that each and every person for the health purposes and all this, because of other many reasons, we have many of those sensors attached. We are monitored. We are somebody's care of our health. We can also imagine the situation with the not only autonomous cars, but talking cars. I mean, the car is talking each other just to warn if there is something going on in front of the, let's say, truck or lorry. So we can give thousands of examples, but the major point is that we should wait for and we should develop these two features that they are supporting, first of all, business, because entertainment, okay, it will come. It will come because we can sit at home, we can be at the same time in the stadium, watch the match, and so on and so on. But the additional jobs, additional benefits, automation will come from those two, let's say, features that 5G is going to bring. And Orange, as the operator, we are focusing on IoT development. We have a special dedicated department working on that. We think that all integrated services, verticals, are very important. And this is the, let's say, the reason, and this is the way that 5G will bring benefits to all of us. I mean, to the industry and also to the operators. Because, as I said, download speed, okay, if you are within the Wi-Fi, let's say, range, you can have now with the Wi-Fi 6 up to 1 giga. But, okay, do you really matter? I don't think so. But from the industrial point of view, if you are, for example, talking about the fixed wireless companies, wireless, let's say, factories, you can, one day you can change everything. You can change the whole production line without additional costs coming from the wiring. So, you know, this is what we are thinking about, and this is the future that we really believe operators can benefit and can be a part.
Okay, thank you very much. Of course, I know that wouldn't be a 5G without operators. I was rather keen to hear if there would be any change in the way how the operators will operate in the future, and if they will be actually beneficiary of this new technology, or maybe we will have the repeat of the situation when you were guys providing connectivity and OTT were just taking the revenue and profit out of this network. Which may also happen with 5G.
So just to add something, if we are looking from that perspective, a 5G network will be completely different than the network that we have now. Without virtualization, without cloudification, there are no 5G network. And this gives significant changes in the operations, maintenance, and costs. And this is for sure.
Yeah, that's true. I think, sadly, we wouldn't have a time to talk about the cost side of the entire change and transformation. We should, though, remember that in this new package, the European Union is preparing there is a big chunk of money reserved for 5G. It's 20% of 750 billion euro that is going to be distributed among state countries, state members, which a big part of it is going to also land in Poland. Okay, but let's go to the last point on the agenda, which means security. Centralized architecture, smart computing at the edge, more antennas, increased dependency on the software. This is all about 5G from that perspective, and this is what makes a 5G, I wouldn't say easier goal, but it's definitely a kind of an entry point for any people that really want to use the cybersecurity and get to certain results, which is not what we would like to have. Those security for 5G is a topic since years, basically. What is your point on that? Is it really like 5G is so much different from what the technology we had before, so we have to focus more? And if so, what are the proper recipe to make this new world based on 5G connectivity more resilient? Because cybersecurity threat is growing, and we know that, and we see that, and we observe the latest. Actually, every week we have some news about some problems with that. So can we now start with Piotr? Piotr, because you are, as an operator, you have your own special unit related to that, one of the oldest certs in Poland, and then you're providing a very sophisticated also services. So for you, security is something as like part of your DNA. So how you see that coming threat to 5G, and how you're going to tackle it?
Yes, 5G network, as I said, will be mostly based on softwareization, cloudification, virtualization, and all of this is quite new for the operators. We used to operate on a bare metal solutions with some firewalls installed, and we are feeling quite safe because of that. With the edge computing, with the, let's say, many base stations, many, let's say, equipment installed all over the Poland, I can say, with the access, software access, it's like being an IT operator, not a network operator. And the most crucial is for that to apply the solution based on the security by design. It means that from the very beginning, while designing something, we should design this with the applying the best practices that we know, applying the best practices from the world. And also the next step is at the stage of the implementation is to also to have regular system tests and also security tests, just to identify all vulnerabilities. This is very crucial and very important. And what is also important that we have to think that these days 5G is also connected somehow with the 4G, 2G, with the IoT. And it means that the let's say as in chain, the weakest let's say part of the chain decides what is the resilience of the whole chain. And from that perspective, if we don't have secure 2G, 3G network, if we don't have secure IoT, because in the past many times we saw the situation that IoTs created a cyber attack, destroying the network, destroying the traffic, stopping the traffic. And from that perspective, we should take this also into consideration. So my point is that we have to learn how to tackle all those things. I mean, people from the network, they have to learn how to tackle all those security issues. But in fact, we think that we can manage. Because, as I said, having implemented the rules and the, let's say, the ways that we are monitoring and managing both IoT systems and also network systems, We think that with the also support coming from the vendors, support coming from the, let's say, designers of the products and the services, this is possible to manage this.
Thank you, Piotr. I need to just say that security by design is not just the way we want to do this, it's the way we have to do this, because it is written in a few legislation, in GDPR, among others. It's there to stay. So security by design is the must. Martin, could you just please elaborate on that? Not on the security by design, but on the security problem of 5G network.
Sure. But I will repeat that mantra because it's our belief as well. Security is there by design. It's built in by design. It can't be an afterthought. I think 5G is different to the Gs, and we've said it throughout this panel, and that is the industry. And when you're going to have so many industries connected to this 5G network and their IPR is placed on that network, they want to be guaranteed they've got security. Because the risk of cybersecurity attacks become much more damaging for the industries and much more damaging for nations' GDP. So every generation of technology has been more secure, and 5G is no different. I mean, IMSI attachments is a good example of how 5G is going to be more secure. But there are many actors in making sure that these networks are as secure as can be. And there are 4 different steps that we look at this. The first one is the standards. And there's a lot of work that many different players, vendors, operators put into making sure that the standards are as secure as can be. And every vendor needs to follow those standards meticulously. Mm-hmm. But then each vendor will have their own security features that they're putting into the products. And once those products go into the networks, they need to be integrated together with operators in the right way, with the right security designs. And once they're operational, then operators are managing and maintaining the security of these networks. And all of those 4 steps, from the standards, the development, the integration, and the maintenance, every step is extremely important. One of the ways to look at this security by design is to look at independent audits like NISAS to show that the vendors really are following security by design. And that's something that we fully support. I think we're seeing that as the radio access solutions get closer to the edge of the network, the core and the base stations, become virtually as one. And we're going to see this in many use cases, whether it's stadiums, the need for high performance where there are many people together. And it just shows that the RAN and the core really become critical national infrastructure. Private networks was mentioned earlier, and I think we're going to see a lot more enterprises demanding that they have unique access to their data. This isn't only because of the security, I think it's also because of the deterministic nature that robotics and machines will require, and they can't afford to have any shared data. They want that data for themselves, and they want that really secure. So I think private networks will see a big surge when 5G is supported and released.
Okay, thank you, Martin. Thomas, what about your position about the security of 5G networks?
Yeah, I want to fully agree with everything what has been said so far. There is not much to add. We are contributing to making 5G network secure as a vendor, and we are fully committed to follow the activities that Martin mentioned before. We are contributing to standards, to developing features, making solutions secure for building the networks, and we are running through several certifications. In Europe, I think some of the certifications are still being decided, but for us it will be quite important to understand how this is going to work so we can prepare.
Yeah, I think that standardization and certifications are the 2 names of the game, which is a part of the process of making the solutions more safety and resilient. Tonny, could you please share with us your position on 5G security?
Yeah, definitely, because it's a very hot topic among all this time. So from our perspective, first of all, 5G is a shared responsibility. I mean, security is a shared responsibility. Actually, not only 5G, but in general, any generation technologies, like Martin mentioned, yeah? When we are about 4G, introduce 4G, 4G also about security. When we're talking about next generation 6G, 6G also will have the security, let's say, concerns. So we think that the security is a shared responsibility. Here we need to involve like government and regulators, and industry like standardizations, and of course like vendors, like vendor and manufacturers, like operators, and even the apps or the service providers. Yeah. For example, here, when from our understanding, different bodies should have different kind of the responsibilities in this security management. Yeah, like the government, like the regulator, they need to form the security frame, yeah, to maintain or to give the guidelines for the industries, for operators, for manufacturers, yeah, especially for users or for operators, the guidelines, and for the standardization or for the industries. I think like Martin mentioned, yeah, because they need to create the standards. They need to create the certification in order for the industry or for vendors, manufacturers to understand what will be the secure, what is the secure, where is the benchmark, right? So the standardized organization should establish this kind of the standards and the certification. And Martin mentioned about NISA. I think this is exactly great example. I think GSMA together with all the industries created this scheme. And majority of the vendors, manufacturers like Ericsson, Huawei, I think sometimes where many major suppliers has been certified. Yeah, and of course operators are part of this certification. So this is the role of the standard organization. Manufacturer, I think, like you mentioned it very well, that we have to make sure from the design, from the production, from the delivery, from the maintenance should be fully aligned with the requirements in order to be secure. And operators, I think the role is simple, like Piotr mentioned, from the deployment, from the operation, from the maintenance, make it from physical sites, make the system to be secure. And one more thing I think also we need to address is about a service provider like apps or like this content application security. It's also very important. A lot of applications now also there's a risk. So this is not the responsibility about the vendor, about operator, but this is also the application provider. So from our perspective, we need to catalog the different layers, different responsibilities. Yeah, yeah. So what I'm trying to say is our position is it's a shared responsibility. It's no matter about the 5G. It's about all new generation technologies. This needs to be a shared responsibility among the whole ecosystem, from regulator to the end users to the application providers. Yeah, and we encourage really the industry to be open, establish standardization, to make the certification and evolve generation by generation, make it more secure. 5G and even in future 6G. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you, Tonny. I think it's actually quite a good summary of our discussion today. I think we were discussing why 5G is important, how it's going to change our life, where are we with the implementation of this new technology, and what are the needs of vendors, of us as users, of telecom operators, and also of the regulators, what the stakeholders should do, what all of them should do in order to make this new technology a real life, and in order to make this technology also a safe way of providing new services and building new businesses. I would like to thank you, all of you, for the participation in a very open discussion. 5G is the topic that is going to be on the first pages over the next month. I believe we may easily say, let's see each other in 1 year and summarize, and hopefully then we may see the next progress in 5G development across Europe. Thank you very much for today's discussion. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.